Welcome back to Only Talk Sports. We talk sports every single day, or at least we try to. I'm your host, Jeffrey, and subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Hit that notification bell so you never miss another video. The glorious news that Indiana fans have been looking for actually came to pass. Mackenzie Mgbako, the top 10 recruit in the 2023 class at small forward, has decided to commit to the Indiana Hoosiers over the Kansas Jayhawks. I'm going to go over how monumental of a get this is for Mike Woodson and the Indiana Hoosiers, and whether I think that this could potentially put Indiana in position to win the Big Ten next season. Now, this is huge news for Indiana because Mackenzie Mgbako is a fantastic basketball player. You could argue he is the best shooter in the 2023 recruiting class, especially for his size at 6'8". Some have him listed at 6'9", but regardless, he is a tall, small forward that can really shoot the basketball at a high level, and that is a position that Indiana has desperately needed since the Tom Crean era, since OG Anunoby. They have not had a small forward that could shoot the basketball at a high level, especially to create his own shot. Indiana had Miller Kopp the last 2 seasons, and he was a solid player, but he was not a guy that could create his own shot. And Mackenzie Mgbako, he can do that in spades. And Mike Woodson being able to land Mackenzie Mgbako over Kansas. I did a video on this 2 days ago talking about whether I thought he would go to Kansas or Indiana, and I said it was 60-40 Kansas. It's hard to beat Kansas. They've got tons of NIL, a great fan base, a Hall of Fame coach in Bill Self, and so many more resources that are why Kansas is at the top of college basketball, and they won a national title less than 2 years ago. So if Mackenzie Mgbako wanted to win at a high level, then he should have went to Kansas, but Kansas did not have the playing time readily available like Indiana. At Kansas, Mackenzie Mgbako could have potentially started, but at Indiana, he will definitely start for sure at the 3 spot where Miller Kopp's spot is vacated at Indiana. And now the Hoosiers are instantly a much better basketball team than they were before. Mackenzie Mgbako is one of the most talented players in Indiana has landed in a long time. Yes, they got Jalen Hood-Schifino under Mike Woodson, and they've got Romeo Langford under Archie Miller, and Trace Jackson Davis, who was a program legend. But Mackenzie Mgbako, he is a really talented player that will more than likely be a one and done. It is just showing how Mike Woodson is elevating the Indiana basketball program from the ashes of where they were in the Archie Miller era by getting Mackenzie Mgbako, because he will be huge for the Hoosiers next season. They've got Xavier Johnson back at the point guard position. They got Khalil Ware, a transfer from Oregon, a former 5-star McDonald's All-American center who is 7 foot that can step out and shoot the 3 ball as well. He's a fantastic basketball player. Malik Renew is a power forward that Indiana got in the 2022 class, who is a 4-star forward that was behind Trace Jackson Davis and Race Thompson in the lineup this past season. Indiana has upped the talent in Bloomington with the players that Mike Woodson has been bringing in. The Hoosiers have a team now that is potentially capable of winning the Big Ten. I'm not sure if they are at the top of the Big Ten right now, because you do have Michigan State, Purdue, if Zach Edey returns, and some of these other teams looking really good in the Big Ten this next season. But Indiana is climbing the ladder slowly but surely with the additions that they've brought in. The Hoosiers, that's not all that they have either. You've brought in Peyton Sparks, a transfer center from Ball State, Anthony Walker, a power forward transfer from Miami. They've got 2 freshmen coming in point guard Gabe Cupps and shooting guard Ja'Kai Newton, who are both 4-star guards. And the Hoosiers are also bringing out several rotational players as well that will be returning. So Indiana has definitely upped the talent. The only position that Indiana is a little bit weak at is potentially shooting guard, because Trey Galloway, he will be a senior this next season, and I think he could start at the 2-guard position with Xavier Johnson at point guard, Mackenzie Mgbako at the 3, Malik Renew at the 4, and Khalil Ware at the 5. But Trey Galloway is a guy, to me, that is better off the bench. He's more of an energy guy off the bench. He's a really good defensive player. He can score at a high level in some games, but not consistently. Indiana lost out on Jordan Dingle, who just went to St. John's, but the Hoosiers made up for that news today by landing Mackenzie Mgbako over the Kansas Jayhawks. The last recruit that Indiana was able to land over the Kansas Jayhawks was Romeo Langford back in 2018, and he wanted to play close to home, so that was a big reason why he did commit to Archie Miller and the Hoosiers back then. But Kansas, this is a tough loss not to get Mackenzie Mgbako, but Kansas is still the preseason #1 team right now, the favorite to win it all potentially, and the favorite to win the Big 12, so they are okay. This is a much more important addition for Indiana, because if Indiana had lost Mackenzie Mgbako to Kansas, then Kansas definitely would have been the best team in college basketball next season. Whether they would have won it all or not, we will never know with Mackenzie Mgbako. Maybe they can still win it without Mackenzie Mgbako, but Kansas, they definitely did not need Mackenzie Mgbako as bad as Indiana did. It would have been very nice for Kansas to land Mackenzie Mgbako, and they were very close, but Indiana Mike Woodson closed in this recruitment, and it's showing you the recruiting chops that Mike Woodson is putting out there. He was a former NBA coach for a decade, and he was also an assistant coach for years in the NBA as well, and he played in the NBA. That has a big pull, and you see what Mackenzie Mgbako said. He feels that Mike Woodson is the best coach to get him where he wants to go in the NBA, and that is a big deal to Mackenzie Mgbako. And the playing time that Indiana could offer is huge because he'll be the starting small forward for the Indiana Hoosiers next season no matter what, because Indiana has no one else at that position besides maybe Caleb Banks, and he'll more likely come off the bench to back up Mackenzie Mgbako. But the Indiana Hoosiers, they are looking really solid for next season now because they have 3 guys that were former borderline 5-star recruits with Malik Renew and Khalil Ware and Mackenzie Mgbako, who are 2 McDonald's All-Americans 5-star recruits that I think could both be guys that only are in Bloomington for 1 year, especially if Mike Woodson can develop them and be able to get them to the next level, which is a big reason why these guys are going to Indiana, because of the fact that they believe in Mike Woodson and his NBA experience, that he can get them where they want to go. And if Mike Woodson can do that for Mackenzie Mgbako and Khalil Ware, I think that will definitely help the Hoosiers in 2024 and beyond to be able to get more high-level recruits that are 5-stars and even 4-star players, and be able to help Indiana ascend back to the top of college basketball as the blue blood that they are, next to Kansas, Carolina, Duke, Kentucky, and UCLA. Indiana is a great program, but they've fallen on hard times, but Mike Woodson is doing a great job bringing these players in, and landing Mackenzie Mgbako is one of the biggest additions that Indiana has landed in such a long time. This is a huge recruitment for Indiana and a huge recruiting win for Mike Woodson. And another big thing about the Hoosiers, they have not had guys that can shoot the basketball who are really tall in a long time, and now Mackenzie Mgbako and Khalil Ware are 2 guys, former 5-star McDonald's All-Americans, that can both shoot the 3-ball. You can run pick and pops with Khalil Ware off of Xavier Johnson driving into the lane. Xavier Johnson being a 6th-year point guard, I think really helps as well. He'll be one of the most experienced players in college basketball next season. And Indiana has upped the talent level to the nth degree. They have fantastic players all over the roster. All Indiana needs is probably a transfer portal guard. They're looking at Andrew Taylor from Marshall and a few other guards that are still in the portal. Maybe they can land one of those guys, but you don't want to get ahead of yourself. But this is a monumental recruiting win for the Indiana Hoosiers and Mike Woodson, being able to land Mackenzie Mgbako, the biggest blue chip recruit that they have landed in many years. And again, for Kansas losing out on Mackenzie Mgbako, that's a tough loss, but they've got a stacked team. I'm really excited to see how good the Jayhawks play next season. They've got a fantastic team with their roster, but for Indiana, they definitely needed to land Mackenzie Mgbako, and Mike Woodson was able to get it done. And looking at Indiana's roster, I don't know if it's the best in the Big Ten. It could be the most talented, but Michigan State's got a lot of talent on their team as well. If Zach Edey returns, Purdue will be right there. Maybe Michigan get back on track with Caleb Love transferring, and Maryland has got some big recruiting wins. So the Big Ten is going to be really interesting for next season, but now Indiana can join the party at the top of the Big Ten, being able to potentially compete for a Big Ten title. I don't know if they'll win a Big Ten title this next season, but Indiana could have a chance to win a Big Ten title and maybe make a deeper run than they made in the NCAA tournament this past season, where they went only to the round of 32 and lost to Miami. Indiana was a great team this past season with Jalen Hood-Schifino and Trace Jackson Davis, but you can't win in college basketball with only 2 great players. And right now, Indiana, you could say, has 4 great players potentially, with Xavier Johnson, Malik Renew, Khalil Ware, and Mackenzie Mgbako, and whatever they can get out of Trey Galloway, and maybe another transfer pro guard they can bring in. I'm really liking what the Indiana Hoosiers are building with Mike Woodson. He has definitely risen Indiana up from where they were a few years ago. Indiana's in a much better place than they were a few years ago, and this is a big recruiting win. Even if Mackenzie Mgbako doesn't have the biggest impact that some people are thinking he will have, averaging like 15, 16 points per game, even if he averages 12, 13 points per game, and he ends up being a lottery pick next year in the 2024 NBA draft, it's a great look for the Indiana Hoosiers. And I think Mackenzie Mgbako, being the small forward that can shoot the basketball that Indiana's needed for so long to be able to create his own shot, I think would work wonders for Indiana's offense. The Hoosiers will look much different next year. They will not be playing through the post. They will be playing through their bigs and small forwards and wings, and even with Xavier Johnson and guard, shooting the basketball more, spreading the ball out. I think they'll have a great defense as well with all of the talent they have and all the length with all the players that they have on their roster. But the Indiana Hoosiers have the potential to be a fantastic team in college basketball next year. Being able to land Mackenzie Mgbako just raises the talent level in Indiana so much, and it gives the Hoosiers a chance to compete for a Big Ten title, make a deep run in the NCAA tournament, and it's because Mike Woodson and his recruiting ability, being able to bring in Mackenzie Mgbako, is the biggest recruiting win that the Indiana Hoosiers have had since Mike Woodson has been the Indiana head coach. And it's going to be really interesting to see how good Indiana could be next season and how well Mackenzie Mgbako does play for the Hoosiers next year. Subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Like this video down below. Comment down below what you think about Mackenzie Mgbako choosing the Indiana Hoosiers over the Kansas Jayhawks, and whether you're surprised that he did pick the Hoosiers over the Jayhawks, and how good of a job you think Mike Woodson is doing at recruiting at Indiana. Follow me on Twitter as well. Link is in the description, and I will see you next time.